Hi, I'm Dylan Paris. I'm a musician, a YouTuber. I work in tech in my day job, and today I want to talk about why the M1 Pro MacBook Pro 16-inch, this beast of a computer right here, is my favorite computer I've ever owned. I think it's the best computer on the market, and I'm someone with a pretty serious gear acquisition syndrome problem, where most people buy one laptop and hold it for years. I've had probably 7 or, between 6 and 10 laptops in the last 5 years, legitimately. And I can say, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that the M1 Pro 16-inch MacBook Pro, the base model with the 1 terabyte storage upgrade, is the best computer I've ever used. I've had laptops that have RTX 3070, 2070s, 32 gigs of RAM, i9 processors from Intel, and although some of those laptops could game better because they're Windows machines with GPUs, every laptop I've ever had, including the 16-inch Intel 2019 MacBook Pro, and any of the Windows machines I've had, were very loud when they were operating at full capacity. And the thing I think is undersold about the M1 Pro MacBook Pro, and is similar to the M1 MacBooks, it's just that this one has some improvements I'll talk about. These machines are just whisper quiet. Even when you're gaming, running something like Disco Elysium or House Flipper, fairly graphically intensive games at full resolution that have been coded for Apple Silicon, you will hear the fans, but they're very quiet compared to especially the fans I would hear on the 2019 16-inch MacBook Pro with Intel. That quietness is one of the key things about this machine that just makes it stand out to me. It also charges extremely quickly, thanks to the fast charging in the main charger. The battery life is impeccable on the 16-inch. And again, everything I'm talking about here is my computer. I'm not one of those people who gets free review units from Apple, at least not yet. And I'm not someone who's going to go out and buy like 5 different variants of the computer to compare them all together. I don't have that kind of budget, and I bought this for me more than I bought it to make videos about it, right? I do edit all of my YouTube videos on it in Final Cut, and it has been extraordinarily smooth. Every now and then, I see the slightest stutter, but that's usually if I'm using Bluetooth headphones, and I think that's more of an audio sync thing than a performance issue, because when I'm not using Bluetooth headphones, it rips through everything immediately. And exporting is extremely fast for me. I can export a 22-minute 4K video shot on this Lumix and get it out in like 8 to 10 minutes. So, 50% of the actual length of the video for the export time, which is just nuts. But I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, so again, let's talk about the best parts of this thing. Like I mentioned earlier, it's silent. Pretty much. To be non-hyperbolic, when it makes noise, it's quieter than anything else I've heard on the market, and it basically almost never makes noise, even under heavy CPU loads. When I do hear noise, it's under GPU load, but most of my workload doesn't trigger the GPU unless I'm specifically gaming, which is something that this thing is kind of capable of outside of some software restrictions that other people have made better videos about. So I won't get too into it, other than to say if Mac wanted to be a player in the gaming space, they could do it, especially with hardware like this. But there are a lot of reasons why developers might not want to take that leap yet, and I understand, even though it sucks, because this thing would actually shred for gaming, and does for the games that support it. But most of what I'm doing with this thing are music production in apps like Ableton Live 11, video editing in Final Cut Pro 10, and for apps like that, I just don't ever hear the fans. It's also been advertised that the thing runs the same on power and off power. My understanding is that was mostly true of most Macs. Maybe I'm wrong, but I always thought that that was one of the big differences between the MacBook Pro and the gaming laptops I would buy. Whereas the gaming laptops performed weaker on battery power because their power adapters were like 230 watts and their batteries were 100 watts. My understanding was that the GPU and CPU compute packages of Intel MacBooks were designed in a way to only use the same amount of power, whether they were on or off wall power, but that might not be true. What I do know for sure is it is true of this machine, which means that this thing is just awesome, whether it's on battery, whether it's on wall power. Now, as far as pro workflows, when I'm doing music production or video editing or exporting videos, it's definitely gonna rip through the battery faster than the advertised like 16 or 20 hours or whatever. But if you're watching video on this, watching HDR content, 1000 peak brightness nits or higher, you're still getting impeccable battery life, and that is pretty cool. You are gonna get the advertised battery life unless you're really pushing this thing, doing like music production, video editing, and then even then you're getting, I think about 4 hours would be my guess. I'm not taking detailed measurements for stuff like that. Check out more technical YouTube channels like The Verge or MKBHD or many of the other people doing awesome work like Luke Miani. But I will say from anecdotal personal experience, it has been an amazing battery experience, an amazing performance experience, and especially for music production, it is so cool to have this kind of power with this kind of silence. I go back to the fan thing, but it's a huge deal. On my last album, There's Something Better, links below, check it out if you're interested. I recorded a lot of the vocals for that on an iPad because the fan noise of my 16-inch Intel MacBook was so loud that it would seep into vocal recording as background noise, even if I had a very long cable from the microphone to the audio interface to the computer and tried to be far away, which also meant that recording was miserable. So I would end up actually going into my bedroom, plugging my audio interface into an iPad Pro, recording the audio into that, and then airdropping that over to the MacBook to drop it into the timeline of my songs. This computer, like the other Apple Silicon computers, bypasses that issue because it is silent when I'm using Ableton. Even a beefed up track with 20 to 30, maybe 40 VSTs running with mastering stuff. I mean, I don't record vocals with mastering chain on, but with high intense effects on these tracks, I'm just not hearing fan noise, which is great because it just means it's an all-in-one recording machine. And, you know, there have been artists like Andrew Wong who've talked about using the built-in mics as a great microphone setup. I personally haven't done that yet because I'm not really in the vocal recording part of my album process for album 2 yet, but it's something I'd like to experiment with. I've definitely used MacBook microphones in the past as a recording option, and it's cool to see they're actually putting a lot of time and effort into that. So for me, my primary use cases for this device are editing my weekly YouTube videos, for which it's been a huge upgrade. I was doing LumaFusion on an iPad Pro for a while, and every time I use an iPad for my video editing platform and then go over to a Mac again, it's just a breath of fresh air, and really the way Final Cut runs on this, it's a dream for video editing for me. I then also use music production software, primarily Ableton Live, although I have also used Logic. Ableton runs just amazing on here. The CPU power available is awesome. And if you're worried about the difference between the M1 Pro and the M1 Max, the difference is your GPU and some encoding threads. And so because of that, if you're doing music production, you just go with the Pro. There's no reason to go for the Max, is my understanding. Unless you want to hit a certain amount of RAM, I believe. But I'm using 16 gigs of RAM and it's been great. If I run into a wall, I'll make a video about that. For me, this was the right price performance target, especially with the trade-in of my M1 MacBook Pro 13-inch. Trading that in, I got $800 for that off of the price of this, and then I put this on an Apple Card, so I'm paying it off in chunks with no interest. And I got 3% back on the purchase, so that was a pretty good setup. I would recommend that method if you want to pay over time and you're comfortable doing that and you have the money to do that. But yeah, this thing is just a beast. It's been amazing for everything I've done with it, and I can't recommend it enough. It's one of 2 products that came out last year that I feel like I can wholeheartedly recommend, and it is the best product I've probably ever bought for price, performance, stability. I know I get some blowback on some of my videos when I talk about stability, but I'm just a big believer that if you pay for something, it should work. And so seeing how good this thing performs is just amazing. I think the promotional images make it look even thicker because of the feet on the bottom, which you can see here. I got the space gray model and I got worried because there's definitely some people who are like, oh, this is the year to go silver, but I actually think the space gray looks really good. Most of my desk is black, most of my tech is black, and so I think it blends in really nicely with everything I have. As many other people have noted, the thickness gets you ports, so I'm able to plug my SD card from this G85 directly into the MacBook, which is amazing. Full-size HDMI is cool. MagSafe has been really nice. Really cool to have back. It charges just stupid fast. I think like 30 minutes maybe an hour, but it feels like it hits almost full just so fast. The screen is amazing, especially for watching HDR content. I've been watching Foundation, stuff on Netflix plays in HDR, and pro tip, if you have an iPhone or any Apple device that has AirPlay and you want to watch Disney Plus content in HDR, if you AirPlay it from your iOS device to your MacBook, it will play it in HDR, which is really cool. It sucks it won't just play it off the internet. That's a whole other conversation. Disney Plus is a horrible web app, but cool to have that workaround. As far as the notch goes, I just simply don't care. The trade-offs are super worth it to me. The bezels are super thin everywhere else. It's space you didn't have before that you do have now because it moves all these screen elements up and then gives you more screen below it. Most apps hide it anyway when you're in full screen, and it just doesn't distract me. It might be similar to the iPhones where the smaller your screen is, the more you'll notice the notch because the notch size stays the same across the range. So I can't speak to the 14-inch. And as far as why I got the 16-inch, I wanted it to be my primary video editing, music production device. I did not want to use an external screen. The screen in this is better than any screen I can buy for anything close to the price. And so I just wanted an all-in-one package that didn't require additional anything. And for that, it's been impeccable. As far as should you get a 14-inch? Maybe. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, decide for yourself. Do you want a smaller device? Do you want it to be more portable? There's not a lot of trade-offs outside of the power availability. There's like a boost mode for the M1 Max, I think. But the other thing is that this one comes with a better power supply, which is super BS that Apple didn't ship the high-end power supply with the default 14-inch. But that's not a thing I had to worry about because I went with the 16-inch. As far as should you upgrade, like I said earlier in the video, I've had like 6 to 10 laptops or computers in general in the last like 5 years. So I'm not the right person to ask because obviously I upgraded. I've upgraded many times more than people should. That said, knowing that about me, take this however you will, I think this is a worthwhile upgrade for anyone with any computer ever. The only reason you wouldn't buy this computer is if you were a serious gamer. If you were like, I need one device that plays games really well and does everything else I do, like music production and video production and watching stuff, then you're gonna want one of the newer gaming machines and you're gonna make some serious compromises. At least that, like to me, the Gigabyte Aero 15 was close to that, but it's super loud and I worried about the OLED long term with static UI and stuff like Ableton. For everyone else, just, yeah, you should buy this. I can't recommend it enough, which is wild. I mean, I try not to be a shill on this channel. This is not paid for by anyone but me. I just can't recommend it enough. I think everyone should upgrade to it. I'm so excited to see what the platform becomes as more developers embrace it, but I have not run into any single VST issues when using Ableton, which was the big thing I was worried about. That said, I don't use every VST in the world. My primary VSTs are the Arturia V collection, Isotope plugins, Native Instruments plugins, Serum, and Valhalla. If you use stuff that's not those, I don't know, and I'm not really buying a bunch of plugins right now because I'm realizing more and more that many stock plugins do many of the same things as other ones, and the more I do music production, the more I learn it's really about do you know how to use your tools, not have you bought the fanciest tool with the fanciest name. Anyway, if you enjoyed this insight, consider giving a like and subscribe. To everyone who's already done that, thank you so much. We're already almost at 4,000 subscribers, which is bonkers. I wasn't even at 1,000 2 years ago. And to see this growth has been just phenomenal, and I'm so grateful for that. Like I said before, this thing is a beast. If you're wondering, well, what do I do about games if I don't have a Mac? Well, I am a giant nerd with no dependents, and so I own a PlayStation 5, an Xbox Series X, and a Nintendo Switch OLED edition. So between those, I don't feel an intense longing for my Steam library, although I do have a Steam Deck pre-order. I might cancel it, but I might not, and then I would also have a way to play my Steam games. So outside of the ones that, work on Mac, which I can play on here. Anyway, thank you again for watching. If you have any questions about this device, please put them in the comments below. I may not have all answers, but I try to reply to every comment. I'm finally getting to a point where I get so many comments a day, I might not be able to keep up, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. If there are videos you'd like me to make with this, specifically related to music production stuff, let me know. I still need to get OBS and screen recording set up, which is why I haven't made a bunch of like Ableton videos yet. It's not like it's super hard to do. It is a bit of a process, and sometimes I don't want to spend my weekends figuring that out. But I'm going to do it, and I'll make some music production videos on here as well. So thank you for watching, and I will catch you soon. All right, peace.